This is the Defenders podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're back with Secret Invasion for the penultimate episode, Harvest.
I was wondering when you were going to call.
You like to think you're a step ahead of me, Fury?
Oh, you're a jet, man. I need rocket fuel to stay ahead of you.
I got a deal for you.
Got anything to do with the harvest?
Bring it to me in person. I'll call the whole thing off.
Call what thing off?
I thought you were a step ahead of me. I'm raising the stakes, Fury. If I don't get what I want, your president's gonna bomb New Skrullos, and the war is on. Bring some iodide pills. The reactor room can be touch aggressive.
Welcome back, fellow Defenders, to TV Podcast Industries. We're back with Secret Invasion Episode 5, Harvest. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
And rounding out this duo, I am Chris. Yes, we are sans our third leg of the podcasting team. Yes, John has been taken by little green men once again.
Yes, he is. He's gone again. I hope you mean like as in a three-legged chair, not a four-legged chair with only three legs, Chris.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I was making a double entendre
Okay.
kind of, but like, sure, we can do it that way too.
All good. Yeah, John is away visiting his family in the UK at the moment, so we are going to crack on with Secret Invasion without him. I know he's going to have enjoyed watching this episode though. Had some great moments in here.
Yeah, and it goes to sunny old the UK as well.
He does.
Sunny old London, where they shoot people in the leg.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect.
Yes. Well, all good. Remember, if you haven't subscribed to the podcast, you can subscribe by going over to tvpodcastindustries.com. We'd also love to hear your feedback on Secret Invasion. Lots of stuff out there about Secret Invasion. We hope you've been enjoying the series so far, but we've only got one episode left, so we'd love to hear your thoughts on how you felt the season has gone so far. You can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or pop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries, where you can leave your thoughts on any of the spoiler posts for any of the shows that we cover over there. And remember, we do have the 5th question in our Secret Invasion pub quiz, where you have the opportunity to win some Secret Invasion goodies at the end of the series. All you need to do is gather together all 6 answers to the 6 questions that we pose and email them to us at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. But we'll get to that a little bit later on.
But without further ado, then Derek, do you want to tell me who gave us what, where, when, how with this episode details?
Absolutely, yes. The executive producers for the show, once again, Kevin Feige, Jonathan Schwartz, Louis Esposito, Brad Winderbaum, Samuel L. Jackson, Selim, Kyle Bradstreet, and Brian Tucker. Head writer for the show, of course, Kyle Bradstreet, and all episodes of the series have been directed by Selim. This episode was written by Michael Bhim and Brian Tucker. Brian Tucker, of course, writer on each of the episodes so far. This is Michael Bhim's first Marvel TV episode. He previously worked on shows as diverse as High School American Football Show All American and British murder mystery Varra. How far apart can you get in your TV writing?
I was going to say, I've neither of those. The only thing I can kind of go, oh, he must have pulled from is like the cottage scene where they set fire to the cottage. And I'm like, okay, maybe murder mystery cottage. Yeah, British countryside.
Maybe go for the investigation part of Varra, the Brenda Blethyn investigating things that are going on. He's taken that over to Nick Fury. Maybe that's what he's doing.
Maybe.
But I just thought that was very far apart on his IMDb. So congratulations, Michael. You've got obviously lots of work ahead of you if you're able to work for such diverse shows.
Definitely. When you can work again.
Exactly. So, Chris, do you want to tell us what they gave us with the synopsis for this episode of Secret Invasion, Episode 5, Harvest?
God blimey, sure. Sorry, that's my best John.
That's a terrible John.
Thank you. Following the murder of Talos, Fury brings US President Ritson to the hospital. He tries to guard him, but Rhodie and his team arrive to take over. He drives Fury away by releasing a video showing him killing former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent Maria Hill. Fury returns to his hideout in Brixton where he meets Gaia. She's looking to bury her father, so Fury sends her to his home, where his wife Priscilla would take care of the ceremony. He explains that Talos didn't lose. He chose the path of struggle, but now it's her time. And with her new powers, she can take on Gravik, but he needs to go to Finland first. Meanwhile, Gravik's plan hasn't worked out the way he wanted to. When Pagon challenges him in front of the rest, he's killed, and Gravik tells the rest of his lieutenants they have no voice and shouldn't question his plans. They attempt to overthrow Gravik, but with his own Super Skrull ability, he kills them all. Gravik reaches out to Skrull Rhodie to enact his new plan. Rhodie is to convince the US president to destroy New Skrullos dropping bombs in Russia. But it's a ruse to convince Fury to hand over the DNA of all of Earth's mightiest heroes to him. He also sends his troops to execute Priscilla for her failure to murder Fury. After giving her father a traditional Skrull send-off, Gaia helps Priscilla survive the attack on her life, and Priscilla drops her off on her next mission. Following a plane ride to Finland, piloted by the ever-resourceful smuggler Rick Mason, Fury reunites with Sonya Falsworth. She learns Rhodie is a Skrull aligned with Gravik, and that Fury's personal connection to the Skrulls means he doesn't want any innocent members of their species to die. He retrieves a vial from his grave and all his necessary equipment, telling Sonya he's going to trade with Gravik to save the planet. He makes one final call and tells his contact, "It's time. Let's finish this."
Do you know, it's constantly amazing me how short these episodes are getting and how much they're cramming into them.
Yeah.
Like, they really are. They're traveling around the world here. They've got like 3 different countries here. Lots of stuff going on. Lots of big moments. And the episodes now, the last 3, I think, have been 32 minutes, 33 minutes. With credits and preview. So, feeling about the length of a She-Hulk episode, effectively. So, it'll be interesting. I wonder will they do an extended episode next week? As the finale?
Potentially. They did originally say that, remember, they were going to, the whole thing about how many episodes per season we were going to get. If it was 30 something, we were going to get 8. If it was 40 plus, we were going to get 6. That was one of the original, back in the day when they first discussed, when they started WandaVision, they were like, this is how it's going to go. Yeah,
they kind of said that that's, overall, all the shows will add up to, 3 hours, is it? If you multiply 8 by 30 minutes. And then they would either split them into 6 episodes or 8 or 9 episodes, basically, depending on what length they want to tell. But the other thing they've said, of course, is that as it's a streaming service, they can choose what the cutoff point is on an episode. They don't have to go to a time that will fit network television, for example, the way that you would have used to have done with your episodes for shows. So, so they are ending every week on a cliffhanger, as we can see every time they've ended an episode. And it does feel like a natural ending to the episodes each week. It doesn't feel like you're adding in 10 minutes just to make up a time. So
no,
that's interesting.
I'd agree. I agree they're not adding in to make up time.
Yeah.
That being said, I could use maybe a kind of extra few minutes here and there on some of the conversations, like just even around the Skrull religion that we see with the funeral, the Scrooneral, the Skrullian. No, the Skrully.
I think they're just called funerals.
Funeral. I just can't.
I just called you Krill there, so yeah.
Yeah. But no, overall, I just like every now and again, I'd like, oh yeah, give me an extra 2 minutes, just bit of dialogue exposition. I think that's more because I'm enjoying the show and could take a lot more from it. But you're right, it's definitely shorter but it does make sense also because you were telling me off air just before we started that they are putting the first couple of episodes of this in on terrestrial TV.
Well, the first 3 episodes of Secret Invasion, yes, they're going to be available from the 21st of July, the day after we record this, going to be available on Hulu. So if you don't have a Disney Plus subscription, which I would be surprised if anybody listening to this episode doesn't have a Disney Plus subscription, but yes, it will be available for everybody else to watch the first 3 episodes as we head into the finale next week, which is really interesting. They also announced that Miss Marvel is going to be available on regular terrestrial TV on ABC in the US. So that'll have ad breaks in it and all that kind of stuff coming up in September. So all leading up to the Marvels later on this year. So lots of opportunities for people to see both of those shows, which lead directly into the Marvels. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, no, totally.
Well, let's get into our top case points for this episode. We've got 3 major case points we're going to talk about from this episode. I think I want to start with Gravik. and the descent in Gravik's ranks and his new plan. It's been kind of interesting over the course of the season. Gravik seems to be a bit reactionary in the season. It's been difficult to kind of get under the skin of what his plan is, other than the Skrulls want to take over the world, right? In the first episode, we thought the plan was that he was going to release dirty bombs, and that would end off causing lots of damage, lots of mayhem. It turned out that he wanted to release bombs in a Russian square and blame that bombing on US dissidents, effectively. So he would create some tension between Russia and the US. Later, he had a plan that he was going to take out the UN plane, which again, I don't think actually exists in our world, but he was going to take out UN-1, the plane, which would cause another international incident. But that was another plan to draw Fury out. So, and to draw the spy out, which was Gaia. And that's where he found out that she was a spy. And now here we have a new plan, which is effectively he wants it revealed to the US president that the Skrulls are working with Russians so that the US bomb Russia, starting potentially a nuclear war or World War III between the US and Russia. So he's also had the plan, of course, last episode, which we saw him try to carry out to kill the president of the US, which would have set the minds of the world on fire, as they say. So yeah, lots of different plans from Gravik, but another flip here. Does Gravik really have a strong plan? You know, Gaia seemed quite convinced of that he had a plan that was going to allow the Skrulls to take over Earth, but does he have a strong plan, or do you think that his transformation into this Super Skrull, these new abilities that he's gotten, have started to make him really cocky, make him really arrogant? Is he changing his plan as he's going? Because it seems like his real motivation is to get more Skrull powers, more superpowers, effectively.
So by the end of this episode, I'm split. So there's two different options. One, this has all been about the harvest. So his great plan is, I need powers. No matter what happens, they will send the Avengers or Captain Marvel against us. So I need the harvest of Fury. So I'm going to keep pushing Fury to a point where he's going to have to give me that. So that's so he has been upping the ante, and it's true, his motivations have just been to get the harvest. But
even that's a change, isn't it? Because he did say that he was trying to get the DNA so that he could create an army of Super Skrulls. He's the only one with Skrull powers now, these superpowers that have been added to him. He has an entire group of lieutenants who he's told in this episode, shut up, you have no name, you have no voice, don't question me. They were supposed to be the lieutenants with superpowers.
Yeah.
So another change there from him.
No, it's true. Like I said, that was partially what I did think. I think, he just wants the harvest so that he can make the army. Mm-hmm. But at the moment, he's the general and he's the one with the power.
Yeah.
What I want to call the breakdown almost of Gravik mentally, or kind of, he seems to be teetering on an edge of just pure emotion. And I wonder how much he started with a plan. He did have the plan, and it was the one he spoke with Gaia. And because Fury has, to a degree, jumped around on his plan, been, sidestepped his plans, and kind of, to a degree, stopped parts of his plans. Yeah. Like UN-1. But he's like, oh, no, that wasn't my plan at all. It's, I really wanted the mole. And because that's been consistently happening, he's getting more and more, aggressive and loose, and he's no longer being the tactician, the general. He's just becoming more, I was going to say homicidal, but yeah, essentially homicidal, because he kills 2 people in this episode of his own lieutenants. And I think that breakdown in his psyche, that's where I'm leaning towards now, which is he's basically the transformation with Colossidian's kind of brutish nature. Kind of, maybe that's it. Maybe Colossidian wasn't the smartest thing. He was basically hulkish, and he just kind of had rage in him. And that's part of that. So I was like, is that what's driving him now? Yeah. Additionally, because Fury has seemingly been a step ahead of him. Now, he says on the call to Fury, no, I'm ahead of you. I'm always one step ahead of you.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that. But it does actually ring somewhat to what Maria Hill said in the very first episode. Where is Fury and the man who was always 3 steps ahead?
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, maybe we talked about this in episode 1 and episode 2 in our discussion. Yeah. Maybe Fury is.
Yeah.
Maybe Fury has been. Fury knew this was like what he always wanted the harvest. That's all he's been prepping all of these things to ensure that Gravik essentially makes a muck up of all of this.
Yeah.
And then like brings the scrolls into the world light in front of the president, and it's all about then, yep, Fury's the man who saves it, and you know what, there was also all these other good scrolls who helped.
Yeah, absolutely, because, you know, the new story that we see at the beginning of the episode shows Talos saving the president, and the narrative that's come out is there are aliens on Earth and they're here to help, almost. It's what's kind of coming out there. So this story that Rhodie's telling to the president on behalf of Gravik, that they're working with the Russians, they were there, you saw them, Mr. President, kind of thing. Here's where they are in Russia. I feel like that's kind of left on a cliffhanger as a question, because I don't think the president's making any decision off the back of, you know, one advisor walking into him telling him to start World War III. But I think it's left for the president to kind of go, well, hang on a second, I was saved by a scroll, effectively. Yeah. You know, that's what's there on the news. So, but it is also interesting with the dissent within Gravik's ranks. You know, we hear from Pagon, and I think Pagon does have a point when he's telling Gravik that he doesn't have the ability to kill Fury. He doesn't have the ability to carry out his plans. He's questioning the orders that he's being given from Gravik because he's been unable to carry out anything that he's telling them to do. He gets killed for it. He's told that his mission was to kill the president, and he didn't achieve that. So he's killed for it, but it feels like it's more questioning Gravik's orders now. Gravik seems like, while he is quite emotionless, he seems pretty pissed off that Fury has thwarted him on this big plan, right? Yeah.
And it does seem like that the unrest is been teetering there for a while, because when they go after him, they all go after him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like a large proportion, to the point where it spills out into the general population. And Gravik kills the lieutenant, the new kid,
Beto,
right in front of all these innocent bystanders.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you remember all the way back to the first introduction of Beto coming to this utopia almost for Skrulls, come here, you can live your life in your own skin. He's being told it's a perfect community, somewhere we can all live together. But you can also choose to be a soldier, where we will get our ability to live on Earth free. And now we're seeing that actually this crazy guy's at the forefront of it, willing to sacrifice everybody, including himself, if that's what it takes.
Yeah.
But also willing to kill other people that don't agree with him. One of the things I would have liked to see at this stage now, where I think it's been 3 episodes since we saw them, the council of Skrull infiltrators that have been across the world. It feels like that has been dropped. It's like as if they said, right, you're now our leader, Gravik, and now he's going off on his own and not even speaking to them. I'd like to have seen another moment of him, you know, either sharing what his plan is or talking to them about a plan. You know, he is the leader of that circle, but I thought we'd see them again. I thought it was a bit of a surprise to not see any of them again.
I assume we'll see them in the next one. At the end of everything. Like, it's going to be, oh, well, that's nicely wrapped up, and welcome to the new one. Gaia, maybe. You're now taking over from your father, who was the general. Now you're the new general, Gaia.
Yeah, that's
or
possible.
Gaia and Priscilla.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. I just think it's odd that we wouldn't have seen that group. Gravik does seem to be going off on his own quite a lot here. But it was a great scene. I thought it was fantastic. There was a moment there, and because you talked quite often about, you know, is Gravik the real leader? Is there somebody else behind him? Is there the Empress of Skrullos? Is she going to come out of the shadows? I was watching that scene going, are they going to kill Gravik? What a great moment that would be in episode 5 to kill off who we thought was the major leader, and then the real bad guy comes out of the shadows. Is that the way it's going to work? What a great twist for the show. I absolutely thought he was going to die there. But to see him fight everybody off and then slit Beto's throat in front of the regular population that are outside, the non-soldiers that are supposed to be in a community being taken care of. I thought it was a fantastic scene to see his anger and his aggression coming out, and his intolerance for any form of action against him. And he's got the powers to stop it. That was great.
Yeah. I was right there with you. I literally thought they were going to kill him.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I called this to a degree.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh no, this is great. Like, this is the real Gravik, please stand up kind of thing. Like, literally, we were going to get that. And it was, I am somewhat disappointed because essentially what I do see now with this Gravik piece is he's just going to be a man of fury. He's angry. And it's going to be fury versus fury in the next episode.
Kind of.
And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But like, this was being billed more as that kind of very much, in my head, that thriller noir spy. And I was like, oh, there's going to be some twists and turns. I'm just with the Gravik character, the enemy here, I've yet to see that twist and turn yet. I'm like, oh no, I'm hoping there is a one in the final, because he is very, I don't want to say one-dimensional.
I don't think he is at all. I think he's changing a lot on screen. He's not one-dimensional because you cannot predict what he's going to do in any episode. It feels like he's changing his plan and he's getting more frustrated with the plan. Effectively, he does have a very basic plan, which is nuke the world and we can take over, right? And whatever it takes to accomplish that, if the nuclear bombs drop on the planet, they can walk the earth and all humans are dead. He does have that basic one, but this antagonism that he has in there for Fury is really coming out. It's like he wants to really stick it to Fury, make him watch while he takes over the world, and Fury's not that kind of person. He's not playing ball in that way. Anything else about those scenes? Anything about Rhodie and the president at all? Do you want to bring into this, Chris?
Yeah, for me, this was just again Rhodie, Rava. I believe that is the name of the scroll.
Yes, Rava. Kindly pointed out by one of our listeners, because we were going round and round about how important is this character, and one of our wonderful listeners on our Facebook page sent us the screenshot of the cast from last week's episode and said, it was right there, you should have just looked at the cast list. Yeah. So this is not a character that we know from anything else at all. We didn't need to go and check all the other movies and shows. Her name is listed in the credits as Rava. Yeah. So.
And the only comic book, she's in a few comic books, she's a pirate scroll. That's it. She's a pirate scroll with a scar and two kind of sci-fi magic-y swords. Okay. That's it. Like,
okay. Very different too, honestly. Just a name taken from the comic rather than any kind of characterization then. Okay.
Exactly. Okay. So with Rhodie, or with this character, I enjoyed this scene, this back and forth with Fury as kind of Rhodie is heading in. And that kind of, I want to call it cockiness.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's just this aggressive cockiness against, we've won, you're done. And that's where they think they are, where Rhodie ends up going into president. We're going to we need to bomb Russia, let's do it now. Everyone's going to be behind us, yada, yada. They've taken the very short piece out of Age of Ultron on Rhodie, where he's telling that story in the party. And I was like, boom, is this what you're looking for? That type of kind of cocky Rhodie, where he's trying to impress everyone. Yeah. They've taken that one little piece and they've blown it up into this cocky new Rhodie character. And I'm like, that's clever. Really clever, great way of portraying it, because we know Rhodie is not that character. We, through all the movies, we know War Machine is way more layered, way better.
Absolutely.
But they've just taken that cockiness, and I'm like, it's very clever. It's a choice, and it worked out so well. Yeah. I'm just wanting to see more. Like, I can't wait till they actually cut Rhodie in front of everyone, because they're going to have a reveal for the president.
Absolutely.
And I can't wait to see that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, hopefully looking forward to seeing actual Rhodie back in the future of the MCU as well, because this character is, vindictive, cruel, evil. We mentioned it last week. And the threat that that Rava, the scroll made to Fury last week to get rid of him was, if you don't go, I'm going to release the footage of you murdering Maria Hill this week now. It's already been released without even speaking to Fury. He's released that information to the world. So that was quite interesting. Now Fury, the most wanted man on the planet, because he murdered a SHIELD agent in Russia. So, very interesting, twists there.
Yeah. And yes, next week we have to find Rhodie. Next week they're going to have to find all the hidden people.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
We'll just have to wait and see that one. When is it the last thing? Kind of like an arc opening kind of thing.
I don't think it's the last thing. I think we'll see some active players in next week's episode. But we'll talk about that in one of our other points. Anything else on this point, Chris, or we move on to case note number 2?
Let's move on.
All right, let's get on to Priscilla and Gaia's action-packed funeral. I love scenes for Priscilla now. I'm really looking forward to seeing her character every week. I'm so glad she's back here. They could have kind of ended the arc with the discussion with Fury in last week's episode, which was fantastic. Best moment of the season, I think, so far. But they have her still involved here because Gravik's men are coming to kill her, and because Gaia needs to have someone from Skrullos, someone who knows the way to give her father a proper send-off. So bringing those two characters together for what I thought was a really good moment. I loved the challenge from Priscilla to Gaia when they're having their conversation about Gravik's plan and about a place to live for Skrulls. And she says to Priscilla, I didn't mean to offend you. And she goes, no, you're young. You believe everything you say is right. Of course you meant to offend. That's what young people do. I really like that from Priscilla. It's a really honest way. You know, she's someone that did work for Gravik, remember? So she knows all of Gravik's plans. She knows everything that Gaia is saying, but it's just that confidence of youth versus the experience that Priscilla brings as being a leader of the Skrull group going back 30 years on the planet. I thought that was a really good part of the conversation that's going on, but also a very respectful send-off for Talos as well. I don't think Talos is coming back.
No.
I think we need to finally put that to bed. A character has died in this show, and it's very unlikely we're going to get him back in the future, unfortunately.
No. Talos, it was nice to see you.
It was.
This is such a shame. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed Ben Mendelsohn as an actor, and I enjoy Talos as a character.
Absolutely.
Gaia will probably take this point going forward in that she is the kind of substitute going forward for all Skrulls, which is good. She is a good character as well.
Absolutely.
Probably a bit more prone to action as well. And what we see is the usual kind of, they're building the younger generation of characters. Mm-hmm. So, this Emilia Clarke and Gaia can kind of fill into that slot of the Anthony Mackies and the other younger Avengers, especially because she is also a Super Skrull.
Yeah.
So, it's a shame. It was a lovely send-off, but it was a shame. I would have liked to see more of him.
Yeah. But, and I suppose the good news in the Marvel Cinematic Universe now is we do have Skrulls that can shift into any character. So potentially we could have Ben Mendelsohn back.
Oh, yes.
Performing as Gaia, pretending to be Talos at some point in the future. We could have something as convoluted as that in the future. So that is a good thing. But yeah, I suppose for me, I think because we've got a TV show here, with opportunity to expand, having these moments in here where they didn't just leave the story with Gaia crying because her father's passed or her father's been murdered. We have a moment where we can actually see the funeral. We can see that moment. I really like just like the phrase that she says over her father's body with travel well to your beyond. I thought that was a really interesting moment that they have. A very Viking send off as well.
Yeah, that's how I was thinking that too. They really go in for it.
Was this the same send-off that Emilia Clarke had for her husband on Game of Thrones as well? Wasn't he burnt on a funeral pyre as well?
Very close, I think.
Yeah.
But it was nice, and it was also nice to see Priscilla do this kind of more religious part as well, because this is going to ingrain. Potentially, we will still see more of Priscilla.
Yeah.
especially because since Fury admits, and we'll talk about it later, that he is married to a Skrull, and that it's one of the reasons he came back is because he's personal interest in this.
Absolutely.
In the Skrulls.
Yeah.
So yes, I think it was a beautiful send-off, but it does get actiony quickly.
It certainly does. The attack from Gravik's team coming in from every area of the building. I think it works really well because Gaia has the conversation with Priscilla just beforehand about why she chose this particular house. Because she talks about the three things that Fury had to have, which are privacy, security, and light. I do like the joke from Gaia that he also wants leather, because Nick Fury loves his leather jackets. But it's interesting that they have that conversation beforehand in this place, which is under attack, and they defend the castle that she's found for herself and Nick. Like, it is absolutely her defending her home that she's purposely chosen because it would be perfect for herself and Nick in their life. It's like as if she had this in mind. If we ever get attacked, I also have defensive positions around the home as well. I thought it worked really, really well. A great fight sequence shows off Gaia's great style as well. Yeah,
and it was almost like they've trained together for a while, which I was laughing about. It was the one thing I was like, oh, they're back to back and twisting and turning, and you shoot, now I shoot. I was like, coordination, I love it.
Absolutely.
You just met properly a while ago.
That's not true. 30 years they've been working together, Chris. She was part of the original team that arrived on Earth with Gaia, remember?
True, but we don't know whether Gaia's been working with Priscilla. Their training and stuff like that. It was just very.
They all worked undercover for Nick.
True,
remember?
Okay.
So I think I would say they worked together a couple of times before. So
very cool. But either way, I also loved the firearm based backpacks. Which has front and back, which is bulletproof and space for your guns and ammo.
Of course.
It's perfect for just what the hitchhiker needs when they're kind of hiking up the mountains. It's perfect.
You wouldn't expect anything less in Nick Fury's home, huh?
No, you wouldn't.
And then finally, after all the action, we get a little scene with Priscilla driving Gaia somewhere and letting her out and saying good luck, effectively. So I do question where Gaia's gone. What's the next step here? Where's she been sent to? I thought that was a little odd that they put that in there. That moment between the two of them, they've worked together, they've defended against Gravik's forces, and then Priscilla's dropping her off somewhere. I was kind of expecting that would come back, and they didn't return to them for the next, whatever it was, 5 minutes left in the episode. So obviously that's set up for next week. Wherever Gaia has gone, that's important to whatever happens next week. But Gaia here being set up with the conversation with Fury being set up, she has the Super Skrull powers, he's aware of them, and Gaia being set up as the one that will take down Gravik. So while there is the antagonism between Fury and Gravik, it looks like it's going to be down to a Super Skrull versus Super Skrull in the final episode between Gaia and Gravik. So that was interesting.
Hopefully. I hope that it is. But I also would like to see a hopelessly outnumbered or outmatched Fury take down.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Do you know, I heard an interesting one this week. There was a question as to why Nick Fury didn't join the battle in Endgame. And apparently at the time, he had obviously returned after the snap, and apparently at the time, the Russo brothers had said, it's kind of a bit difficult to put someone like Nick Fury on a battlefield with hundreds of aliens coming down when all he's doing is running and shooting a few guns. And he would only have, 2 guns in his hands or maybe 1 pistol. So they felt it would be easier just to have him off the battlefield. So I think Marvel probably have that same feeling about Fury. He's great when he works in the shadows, and maybe have the fighting team around him, which I think is where we get to with our final point, who he's calling and who he's going to bring along for that final fight, or who is he talking to for that final moment. But I do feel that Nick Fury will do the thinking, he'll do the planning, he'll put together his idea of what he feels is going to happen, but I'm not too sure whether they're going to get punch ending to this with Fury versus Gravik, unless he delivers the final shot, maybe.
Yes, true. He's the great tactician.
Yes. Yeah.
No, I agree. I just thought it'd be fun.
Yeah. Well, we'll
maybe
see.
Fury gets thrown in and he gets extremis put in him or something.
Interesting. Very different. A very different move from the comic books.
Yes.
Of course, he does have the Infinity Formula in him, which keeps him young, but he doesn't have much in the way of other superpowers in the comic books. So it'd be interesting to make him into a superhuman character. I think that's it for our second case note. Let's go on to our final case note: Fury of Finland. We have Fury traveling over to Finland with a little guest star in this episode. I thought that was really interesting to see Mason back. Mason featured in Black Widow. I forgot how much I liked that character. I remember the character really well because he formed such a great part of the movie. He was the person that was able to give Natasha Romanoff and her sister all the weapons that they needed, all the vehicles that they needed. He was someone that you could call on to get you out of a tight situation. And I thought his way of reacting and interacting with Natasha was fantastic. I almost felt like a little love story going on between the two of them. But we have him back here doing the same job for Nick, which makes loads of sense because Natasha used to work with Nick, so of course he would be a similar contact, right? Yeah,
exactly. And much like you, I saw the character and I was like, where do I know him? Why do I like him?
Really?
Where do I know him? Why is he cool? Oh, yes. And it's increasingly fun as well, because the mask that Fury uses is the Widow mask.
Yes, it is. The Widow Veil.
Which Widow uses in Winter Soldier.
That's right, yeah.
And it's basically called the Widow mask. And I was like, oh, lovely connection. Oh, that's cool. Gadgets, tech, kind of black market guy. This is cool. It's a clever thing. But yeah, no, I remember him now and I was like, oh yeah, it was good. I do kind of want to watch that again, by the way.
I watched it last night.
Did you?
The great benefit when John's away is I can just rewatch things over and over again. And where John would probably want to move on to something new, I'm like, oh, that seems good. I'll watch Black Widow again. It's good fun. Really enjoyed it again.
Yeah,
I've seen it quite a few times, but I did enjoy that. It's really cool, and good to see Mason, as I say, on there. He has some good scenes with Fury there. I like his final kind of dig at Fury. Get some sleep. You seem a bit grumpy. Good little moment with him. But we also have Fury landing in Finland and meeting up with Sonya Falsworth, who we haven't spoken about this episode. Let's fit in anything we want to about Sonya in this point here, Chris, because she has quite a big move here. She becomes the director of MI6 or SIS during this episode. Yeah,
from the moment she enters the director's office, it was great. She usual Sonya that we've kind of grown to love over the series. And we know that this character was the one she spoke to back in like episode 1, episode 2. And there's always she was questioning that there was high level scrolls. So you do kind of not quite sure where she's going. And as soon as she shoots him, I'm like, okay, scroll. Cool.
Yes.
Now I understand where everything's going.
But once again, I thought it was interesting. She shoots him and it does take about 30 seconds because it's not like he's died and turns into a scroll. She shoots him in the leg and it's about 30 seconds before he changes, before you see anything of the scroll and you're going, hang on a second. Has she got this right? She's just suspected the director of the SIS, or as I said, MI6, as being a scroll. Maybe she's wrong here. What's her evidence? And interestingly, it seems like her reasoning for suspecting him is because right back in episode 1, it's because Fury and Talos found the contact that they were talking about in the room, and that was the only person in the room that she was talking about. So I was trying to put it together in my head, and I was going, so she suspects that he's a Skrull because this information leaked, but actually it didn't leak. Fury was watching into the room, but she knows that because she has the owl that had Fury's video camera on it. So I was trying to piece together why she suspected him, but I think we may have seen it. It may have been off screen. So yes, it is a great scene. I love that moment, and I love that she's now taken over as director of SIS. That's the way accession works in the Secret Service in the UK, is it?
Yeah, you shoot your boss.
Shoot your boss.
Is that not how it works in normal corporate culture?
How it works in my business. No, it doesn't. It doesn't work in my business that way. I'm not threatening my boss. But she does have some great moments. She gets the details out of him as to where the Daltons are, the two scientists that have been working on this Skrull project, and we see them confronting the Daltons at their home. And she has a great line with them when she arrives, telling them, I could be your bestie, but I'm also devilishly good at not being your bestie, which is great. She also kills Victor Dalton. Interestingly, he was trying to protect his Skrull wife, I guess, is the person who's pretending to be Dr. Dalton. He's trying to protect her from betraying Gravik. He won't let her betray Gravik, is what he says, and tries to kill her before Sonya puts a bullet between his eyes. So I thought that was interesting. So it's almost like, you know, we're seeing them as a couple who are working on this project together, but it's almost like Dr. Dalton, that Skrull, is being made to do this project, and Gravik has a fail-safe in case she goes against it. She'll be killed by Victor, the other Skrull, effectively.
Yes.
So, that was interesting.
And it's fun that so we have that kind of that call out or kind of by Sonya, which is kind of paraphrasing here, which is like, yeah, men in any culture are always going to take that from the women.
Yes.
And it's just really fun. It's a nice nod, and it just kind of propels us forward, because I am interested to see where I have a feeling that Doctor will kind of turn up again.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because that Skrull Doctor, essentially like a crazy geneticist who managed to, like, so this is MI6. How do we get Captain Britain in the MCU? There we have it.
Well, maybe.
See, that's it. Maybe. A Skrull geneticist who was able to kind of alter people's DNA, and we suddenly get Captain Britain. Be brilliant.
Maybe that's the way they'll go. You never know. But we do have Falsworth meeting up with Fury when he arrives in Finland. That's lots of F's there, isn't it? And they finally get a chance to sit down and kind of compare notes, which I liked. I liked that, you know, we now have Sonya being brought up to speed. The idea that she has now, in her new, let's say, temporary position as the leader of the Secret Service, she's given Rhodie the go-ahead because she had a relationship with Rhodie in the past. She knew who Rhodie was. She'd worked with him in the past. And Fury reveals, well, he's a Skrull. You've actually just given the go-ahead for the plan on behalf of England, on behalf of Britain, to bomb Russia, because of a relationship with someone that has been replaced by a Skrull. So I like that. We've seen Sonya question whether Fury is ahead of the game. And here Fury has the ability to tell her, hang on a second, you don't know everything. So, so finally getting that a little bit of one-upmanship. It's not a great piece of one-upmanship. You don't want to know that. You don't want to know that you've just sent your country on the path to nuclear war by a mistake, right? But he's also revealing other elements to it. As you mentioned earlier on, he reveals to her that he is married to Priscilla, a Skrull. It feels like Sonya does actually know Priscilla.
Yes.
But he says, I was here on my honeymoon in Finland with Priscilla, and then says the Skrulls like the cold. And that's the moment of reveal to Sonya that she realizes, oh, wait a minute, your wife's a Skrull. Given that Fury has hidden the fact that he's married from so many people, that kind of tells you a bit of the closeness between Sonya and Nick, a bit more of the closeness between the two of them, if he has told her, right?
Yeah, I think whether it's because Sonya is someone else,
maybe
we're kind of led to believe that they do have this relationship from the very first episode, where he goes to see her, or at least a previous. In the 80s, they were doing spy shit together. But
see, I was kind of thinking of the relationship between Natasha Romanoff and Clint Barton, where everybody else in the Avengers, everybody in S.H.I.E.L.D. didn't know that Clint had a wife, yet even Clint's kids are calling Natasha Auntie Natasha, effectively. They all know each other. She's the only one that knows all about the family. So is Sonya that for Nick? You know, is that his best mate that he's able to talk to about those things? But even with her, he didn't reveal that Priscilla's a Skrull, but did talk about the fact that he was married. Maybe. Yeah. Maybe. It's a small moment, but I just wondered whether that was a fun moment. That was a reason. Yeah.
And they do go to Nick Fury's dead drop. His literal dead drop.
Yes, they do. One of the many, apparently. A man with graves all over the world. I think that's a reference to the comic books as well. Nick Fury has died at least 6 times definitely twice officially in the comics, where he died for a few years and came back afterwards. So I think this joke of him having gravestones all over the world for the death of Nick Fury is a little nod towards that. I know in the Marvel Cinematic Universe he's died once as well. So yeah, I like that little nod there as well.
Yeah. But that does lead us to the harvest.
Yes. So
you have a problem.
It's not a problem as such. I know he's talking about the harvest, and I know he's talking about taking the harvested DNA to Gravik, and he's saying that that's what he's going to do. And, you know, we can't believe anything until the final episode happens, right? That is what Nick says the plan is. He's here to collect the harvested DNA of all of the Avengers, a project that Gravik worked on. So that's why Gravik is aware of it. He does that cool spy thing of blowing on this unseemly grave. It opens up and there's a vial inside. One individual vial with a liquid inside it. Is that the way you would store the Avengers' DNA? Would you not separate it out to have a vial for each of them?
You'd think that. That's where I would think that too. But then I think it's just like, rather than having another case within a thing, it was just like, this makes it look cool. It's a vial of all their DNA.
Or is it like a vial of COVID that he's going to give to Gravik and make him inject himself with pure COVID? Is it something like that?
That's literally a dirty bomb. No, I think it's just supposed to be that it's
just
a
it
vial
looks
of
cool.
all. Yeah, that's the way I took it.
Okay.
It was cool to understand what the harvest was. That all the Avengers bled during Endgame and in Wakanda, and
even Carol Danvers is called out as well.
Yeah,
even Miss Marvel bled.
And Fury basically sent Gravik to lead a team of Skrulls to go in and pick up all the DNA, which is it's a cool idea.
Yeah.
And it explains why Fury hasn't brought in any of the other Avengers now, because if they fight Gravik, or if they go after Gravik, he wins anyway, because he just has to cut kind of Falcon or Captain America now, and he gets that DNA.
Yeah.
Done. That's it. Like, all you have to do is just cut them slightly, and then you get the DNA. So he explains partially why Fury is reluctant in calling in the big guns, and why he wants to do it himself, old school, with eye patch and trench coat and all.
Yes, I did like him tooling up. I thought that was very cool. I wish he'd just shaved that beard off, just so he make. I
just wish I understand. Like, you see the eye patch do something. Like, just kind of it turned on and went, and like, you saw it was, other than that, he's just put on, and like, he just put it on for like fashion choice.
It's for the effect, man. He doesn't want to look like the hobo that he's been looking like for the last 5 episodes. He wants to get himself looking back like he was as the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's what it looks like. Did you think there was too many sections that he had to open up in the to get all that stuff? I'm sure that all could have fit into one.
It would have
into one box, wouldn't it?
Literally, you could have just put the gun and the eye patch on top of the coat, and boom, Bob's your uncle. And then you would only have to open one lone wolf box.
That was very
because
cool.
It was a wolf icon. I was trying to figure out if it was like, oh, is this kind of like a Black Panther thing, like White Tiger, the White Wolf, and it was just like they're saying that maybe he's taking on some of it. Nope. It's just a lone wolf. I got it now. Okay.
It's just a wolf, and it wasn't actually in the episode either, because they did edit it properly where it just has it opening up. But I did have this image of Nick going around to like 15 boxes and going into each one as he went by, blowing into each one to make them open up, so that he could get the piece of equipment that's behind door number 6. You know, it's probably been a while since he's been in Finland. You know, maybe he's forgotten which box holds which piece of equipment.
Each bullet for his gun.
There you go, in a different box.
The full mag just takes a while to go through.
That's it. Hopefully, he doesn't have a massive gun with tons of bullets. Hopefully, it's just a 6-shooter. But it is interesting. It does set us up for next episode. This is his plan to now go straight for Gravik. Gravik has given the offer to him. If you give me the harvest, I'll call the whole thing off effectively. So as I said, this seemed more like a plan for Gravik, not a plan for the Skrull race to stay on the planet. So that, again, we won't know until next week, but that feels like now we've turned him into the villain of the show who you can take out without it being Nick Fury versus a million Skrulls on Earth, yes, right? Exactly. We'd already said it was only going to be him and his followers. Gravik's taken out his followers now, and now it's going to be mano a mano versus Fury and Gaia and Sonya and Priscilla, I guess, next week as well. So it may be a bigger team on Fury's side.
So, question. Did he call Gaia? Or did he call someone else?
My theory on this
is
that he called Maria Hill.
Yeah! Yeah, he did.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. He could have called anybody. The fact that we had, the first introduction to Captain Marvel was him calling out to space to bring Carol Danvers back to Earth to fight in the battle with Thanos. That's an indication that it could also be his call out now to Carol Danvers to get her back. She's been mentioned almost every episode. The fact that we have Maria Hill as guest star every single episode, the only way that Nick could prove his innocence to not killing her, or a really easy way for Nick to prove his innocence and not killing her, is to show that she's still alive, right? So call her out of hiding. It's time now. Let's go. He could have also been calling Gaia because, as we mentioned earlier on, Priscilla's dropping her off to get something, to do something, to set up something. So he could have been calling her to say, right, it's time, let's go. He's done his trip to Finland. So it could be as simple as that, I'd like something a little more than that. I'd like more people. Hopefully it's a call to Coulson to get the whole Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. gang back together, and we get Quake and the full team back in fighting alongside Fury. That'd be cool too.
I'm of the opinion it is Maria Hill. I think now they killed off Talos.
Mm-hmm.
He is dead.
Yeah.
He is never coming back. Maria Hill, I think that's the nice twist. That, nope, she wasn't. Fury has been ahead of this. 3 steps always ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Since day one. Since him coming back. And him and Maria knew there were Skrulls in the pub, so they had to fight in front of everyone where she calls and questions, and then Gravik kind of echoes parts of that conversation as well, saying that Fury's done. So we have all that, and it's all played back, so they devise the plan where Maria is going to disappear. She's going to sacrifice. She's not an LMD version, but something happens. Or Talos gives Gaia the gun that Gravik used to shoot, and it was kind of a special gun or special bullet or squib or something.
Okay.
And that's what this whole lot is. And the person who spoke to Fury, who was Maria Hill's mother, was Priscilla. All these, that's how I could see it all kind of playing out.
Okay.
If it is her. I hope that's it, because if it's just a call to Gaia, we know Gaia's going to do something anyway.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's on. It's we knew because she just got dropped off. Because I know where she's going. But
it does connect to the conversation that Fury had with Gaia in the episode where he said, I've got to go to Finland, and she was going off to meet Priscilla. And if you connect those two conversations, he's going, right, I've gone to Finland, I've got what I needed, it's time, let's finish this, you're by my side. So it does make logical sense. It would be no stretch of imagination at all that he's calling Gaia and they're tooling up for the final mission. There's no stretch there at all. I just feel, because of the mention of this information being released, that Nick Fury is now the most wanted man on the planet. The easiest way or the best way to disprove that would be bringing Maria Hill back to go, well, I didn't kill her because she's not dead, right? So,
or Gaia becomes Maria Hill from now
on. Maybe.
Yeah, see. But then you don't have Emilia Clarke.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. I was I think, the problem, again, I kind of know where Gaia's gone because of marketing.
Okay.
Because there's a scene in the trailer.
Oh, okay.
That from like one of the original trailers.
Yeah, I don't remember it, and I don't want to know.
So I'm not going to tell you. So like,
we've
got
thing. 6 days to wait, Chris.
Exactly.
And we'll find out next week.
I just don't. I think it. I will be very happy that I think it's Maria Hill. Now again, every other piece that you said makes sense. Could be Carol. Could be Gaia. Could just be Priscilla. Could be Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Like Coulson, Quake. It could be anyone. And I think a lot of those options are open. I just hope it's not the kind of obvious Gaia one. I think that would just be nice.
I feel like it might be now.
You said 6 days.
6 days to go. 6 days to go. Let's get to our final point as we usually do each week. Who do you trust? We're down to the pointy end now. I think if we don't trust someone now, they're on the bad side, right? So we don't trust Rhodie now. Definitely. We don't trust Gravik now. I don't think the team behind him should be trusting Gravik now either. I think he should be left all on his own to try and carry out his plan. We trust Fury, of course. We trust Gaia now, and Gaia and Priscilla together now. Yeah. Do we trust Priscilla now? She's not going to turn on Gaia and report the fact that she's turned on Gravik to Gravik, right? Yep. Anybody else that we have? Do we trust Mason? Mason, who just appeared in this episode to give Nick his items to get across the border into Finland.
Yes, we trust them
Mason.
all.
We trust Mason. Good stuff.
The only question mark that still is out there, which hopefully is addressed in episode 6, Gaia's mother.
Yes. She's also been mentioned every single episode of the show.
Yep. Exactly.
Just the one thing on that here, a little bit of a more finality to it, where we have Gaia leaving her mother's wedding ring on the burning body of Talos before she sets fire to the pyre. So that to me felt like a bit more finality than just the hearsay of she died off screen that we had heard in the previous episodes, but she has been mentioned every episode. So, that would be interesting to see her back. Yeah. And then we are saying that we may not trust Maria Hill because Maria Hill could come back next week, and we've believed she's been dead since the first episode. So yeah,
agreed. I just think with Gaia's mother, I think it's a good one to have her back, and it'd be it's a good piece. But that being said, it is also good motivation in the final episode where Gaia and Gravik are fighting, and it's you killed my mother and you killed my father.
Absolutely. Prepared to die.
Prepared to be avenged.
Absolutely.
I will avengers you.
Absolutely. Prepared to die. Good stuff. Any notes, Chris, about this episode? Anything else you want to talk about before we close it out?
Nope. Nothing from my side on this one.
Good stuff. I think we've talked about everything. I just wanted to make mention of this. And again, I just thought it was a fun little nod, and probably in this case, unintentional. When Rhodie says that that he wants the president to drop the bombs and and kill the Skrulls, who are living in Russia, what he actually said is cut this thing off at the head, which was always the motto of Hydra: cut off the head and 2 more will take its place. I just think it's interesting that this old phrase about Hydra is used to describe what Rhodie wants to do to the Skrulls living in Russia, or at least he's being told to do. I just thought it was a little interesting nod, given Nick Fury's main villain all the way throughout 70 years or 60 years of comic books has always been Hydra. So I thought that was a good nod.
It was fun.
Yeah. It stood out to me. Anyway. That's it. That's the end of our discussion overall about this episode. Chris, do you defend Secret Invasion Episode 5 Harvest?
I do. My literally only down point, and it's not even a down point, it is that it's again a short episode. And that being said, doesn't detract from the episode being the 30 something minutes. It's more that I wish give me an extra 5 or kind of 10 without padding, just to give me more of Sonya and Fury in the car reminiscing for like a 2-minute dialogue. Let's
get that full rap track on there and get Sonya singing along to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Are we doing this? We're doing this. Yeah.
I think it would just be fun.
Yeah.
But overall, I do completely defend this.
Excellent.
Derek, what about yourself? Do you defend this episode of Secret Invasion?
I love this episode. Yes, really good. I think this is just a really tight show. I think that's probably why as I say, the fact that you get to the end of the episode and you go, wow, that was 30 minutes. Look how much they crammed in there. It's like they're shaving everything off to make it really tight. It's interesting that there is a lot of criticism that the show's slow from people who are watching. And I do feel it's almost like you're watching this spy show and you want to get to the end of it. So is it slow? Does this show feel slow to you when you're spending time with the characters? It doesn't to me. To me, they're telling a wider story and have more time to expand on the characters that you wouldn't get in a movie. And I think it's working really well for me. By the end of the season, it's going to be almost 3 hours, I think, or maybe a little bit more than that, maybe 4.5 hours in total. That's not much longer than a movie in total. So personally, this is my type of show. It's not running slowly for me, and I'm really excited to see how it's going to close out next week. I thought this was a great penultimate episode, setting everything up for that finale next week. But I just can't believe it's going to be over after waiting.
Your life.
How old am I now? They're waiting 34 years to see a good Nick Fury TV show. And it's going to be over in a week's time. That's awful. But anyway,
It's over.
looking forward to it, as always. Let's get off to the pub, Chris.
Let's do it.
Yes, we have the 5th question in our Secret Invasion pub quiz. All you need to do is gather together the answers to all of the questions that we've given out throughout the season. There's one more question to come next week. There'll be six questions. You just gather together the questions, provide the answers to us, email them to us at feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, and you could be in with a chance of getting your hands on some Secret Invasion goodies. The question for this week is, what does Sonya Falsworth say podcasts are full of?
And the answer is not gorgeously handsome men.
It's not.
You can't see me grinning.
The answer is not gorgeously handsome men.
Yes.
Are you saying we're not gorgeously handsome, Chris?
Well, I'm just saying that's not what Sonya Falsworth says.
It's not
She is wrong, because it is gorgeously handsome men.
That's it. Exactly.
Ding! I have the Colgate ding and everything.
Good stuff. Yeah, I thought that would be an appropriate question for this week.
It is, definitely. So, just a reminder again, all the questions at the end of next episode to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com.
And that question, once again, is, what does Sonya Falsworth say podcasts are full of?
Yes. Now, this episode of TV Podcast Industries is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon, including Johnny Million. Thank you so much, Johnny.
Thanks, Johnny.
If you want to be like Johnny, you can support us for any monthly amount by going on over to patreon.com/TV Podcast Industries. Or if you'd like to support us on a one-off donation, you can head on over to buymeacoffee.com/TVPI and buy us a one-off coffee to help keep the lights and mics going. And in the case of a coffee, keeping our editor-in-chief in caffeine, because you know that's what he needs. But you ain't got the bucks, don't worry, you can support us by subscribing to the podcast and sharing it with your friends, family, grannies, scrolls, and anyone in New Scrollios. Because we're sharing the podcast is what, Derek?
It's, of course, sharing the love.
Of course.
Good stuff. Thanks, everybody, for your support. Really good to have your support throughout this season of Secret Invasion. Hope you stay on with us as well for lots of other stuff coming up this year. I think it's time to get over to our feedback section. We got an email in, Chris.
Yes, let's jump in. First up, the email from Coffee and Vodka, who had this to say: greetings, fellow harvest gatherers defenders. A nice explainer episode surrounded by some well-placed action and writing. Gravik didn't kill Fury because he still needed something from him. Nick and Sonya weren't working at cross purposes, sort of, and it turns out she didn't know everything. A few sticking points. Nick's 180-degree judgment of Earth's need, or lack thereof, of supers. Strange coming from the man who brought them together. A single vial, presumably carrying a cocktail of Avengers DNA rather than separate samples. The President presumably not reaching out to the Russian government prior to an attack. And of course, the very sudden heel turn of Gravik that felt more plot-driven than natural. Nitpicking aside, it settled the matters of scope greatly, turning it into a personal chess match between Fury and Gravik, making it a matter of personal pride for Nick and personal power for Gravik. Throwing Gaia and Priscilla's castle defense, Talos' funeral, Fury's fugitive status, it made some very tight and entertaining 37 minutes. At any time you can put Mr. Jackson and Mrs. Colman in the same place, it's always a bonus.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, love the name Nick chose for himself to get into Finland. Think you could talk to the House of Mouse about making the final episode an hour and a half? Just curious. 4 revolting scrolls, large men, and vile vials out of 5. Peace and take care, Coffee and Vodka.
Thanks so much for the feedback, Coffee and Vodka. You sent us down a rabbit hole. We've gone off on Google to find out what Nick Fury's name was and what the meaning was, because we didn't get it. We didn't catch it when we were watching the episode. So it's Mr. Kerhonen, and apparently Google tells us that Kerhonen in Finland is used as a term to describe somebody who's elderly, aloof, clumsy, silly, or foolish, which loads of people have been accusing Fury of throughout the season so far. So I guess that's the joke. I wouldn't have got that at all if you hadn't pointed that out, Coffee and Vodka.
Yeah, thanks, Coffee and Vodka. I would have just taken it as like he went in as Joe Smith.
Yeah.
But it's a Finnish Joe Smith.
It's Joe Kerhonen,
yeah.
the elderly, aloof person. There you go.
Thanks so much, Coffee and Vodka.
I see that you caught the same thing as I did about the single vial carrying all the Avengers' DNA. Does seem like a little bit odd, but I presume you could find individual strands of DNA. I guess that's the point, right? You don't need to keep them all separated, but I'd probably keep them all separated and tagged personally. Nick Fury's turn on whether the Earth needs supers. I wonder, is this something to do with what his opinion of the Sokovia Accords would have been? About the amount of damage that superheroes could do if they land in a place and the collateral damage that they could do. Would Nick Fury be for the Sokovia Accords? Maybe. Because effectively his choice here is he's saying he doesn't want to have any innocent humans or any innocent Skrulls killed. If he calls in one of his special friends, they may kill someone unexpectedly, or there may be collateral damage that would take out some of the innocents that are there. So, and there's also obviously the point that if he brings them in and it is someone that is superpowered, they could take the DNA and create an even more powerful super Skrull. Yeah. So 2 reasons why he doesn't want to bring in these guys. And then the third reason that he's giving is it's personal. It's his fault. He's the one that started it. If he hadn't sent Gravik out on that harvesting team, Gravik wouldn't even know about the idea of giving himself superpowers through the DNA of other superheroes. So he has a couple of reasons. But yes, he is, of course, the one that set up the Avengers in the first place. So it is interesting.
The Iron Suit around the world.
Kind of.
That was his original plan. Him and Iron Man's original plan.
That was Tony's original plan, yes. His plan was to put together a team of the best trained humans and superpowered humans to fight off any alien threats. So, yeah. Good stuff. Thanks, Coffee Vodka. Over on Facebook, Lindsay Lois says, penultimate episode was short but sweet. Not sure if it hyped me up for the finale per se. I still feel the story would have been best told in film format. That said, I am still intrigued to see how Gravik versus Fury goes down. A special highlight of the episode for me would be Sonya. Olivia Colman's performance is sublime as she combined her character's competence with comedic timing. Another perhaps would be some of the Skrulls in New Skrullos trying to stop Gravik. I like the infighting amongst his ranks and how not everybody agrees with him. Not so highlight for me is the seeming finality of Talos' fate. I understand why they did it, but it doesn't make it less annoying to kill off a great character that had an amazing dynamic with Fury. Anyway, thanks for the time and curious to hear your thoughts on this episode as well. Cheers. Thanks, Lindsay. That's really good to hear that you at least enjoyed most of the episode, and hopefully you will get hyped for the finale. Yeah, it is sad to see Talos is gone for sure, but yeah, lots of great moments with Sonya in the episode.
Yeah, no, I think while we've lost Ben Mendelsohn, we gained Olivia Colman. Like exactly. That's the thing. Like you got to look at the positives and the negative.
Exactly.
Is the glass half full, or is there an eye, or is an eye patch? It's fine. We also got some feedback over on Facebook from Heather Wallace, who had this to say: as soon as Fury said he was going to Finland, I thought of Natasha's hideout, but I wasn't expecting OT Fagbandy to pop up. So good to see him. I really liked him in Black Widow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why Gaia and Priscilla are still walking around with those faces when other Skrulls think Gaia is dead and are hunting Priscilla. And why didn't they change during Talos' funeral? I know there's a production reason why, not covering up recognizable main actors in Skrull makeup, but doesn't make sense in universe. One of the highlights of the episode was Gravik's rage during the fight with his followers, and then roaring at the others in the compound to try and take him. So far, his emotions have been very controlled. That fight brought out how dangerous he is. I really want to see he and Sonya go head to head. It would be a memorable fight. She's fantastic.
Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Yes, why didn't Gaia and Priscilla choose different faces? I suppose Priscilla hasn't really gotten out of the house yet.
Yep.
She's staying there and saying if they're going to come to attack, they're going to come to attack. So she's not particularly in hiding. But I wonder, Gaia does actually make a comment to Nick that she'll put on a good face when the cops are coming. So I think she actually does use a different face and then uses her Gaia face when she goes to visit Priscilla, and then they're attacked there. So I think that's just a nod, but you're probably right, Heather. It is probably that they didn't want to do an extra amount of morphing to move them from their Skrull faces back to their human faces or onto a different human face. But yeah, I do think that Gaia has changed in between her conversation with Nick just because of that line.
Yeah, and they did talk about how easy it is for when you have taken a new face as a Skrull, or how easy it is to be detected by other Skrulls.
If it's a new face, exactly, yeah.
Yes, exactly. The longer they are in a face, the harder it is for even Skrulls to tell they are a Skrull. Mm-hmm. So, again, slightly in the universe, not really the answer. We know the answer why, but it's another potential.
Absolutely. Always trying to explain away. Some things like that. Good stuff. Thanks, Heather. Dr. Bob Phillips says, Marvel, I was only joking about the episode shrinkage problem, not requesting more of it. It'll be impossible to pick just 3 moments from this episode. The resurrection of Fury, the sass of an English spy mistress, the most badass pair of Skrullian warriors fighting their way to safety, the honouring of a very good Skrull, mutiny, Roots and Rhodie, plus more, I'm sure. Can't wait to hear your thoughts and the thoughts of everyone. I think we were able to get 3 points out of it, but I think that probably spanned across probably about 8 different points, just shoved into 3 headings. That's the way we usually do it, isn't it?
It is. But it's okay, Marvel. We understand that shrinkage problems are a problem, but they don't have to be a problem for life. If you just go to Dr. Bob, I'm sure he can prescribe something that will get rid of your shrinkage problem.
Hopefully in time for the
Dr.
finale, and it'll be
Exactly.
3 times as long next time.
Exactly. And that's just what it says on the packet. That's the marketing. Who knows? It could be as long as you want, Marvel. As long as you want.
Exactly. Thanks, Dr. Bob. Victor Von Doom says, greetings, Defenders. Sorry to see Talos die. When I first heard his name, I couldn't help but think of the Bronze Giant from the old Ray Harryhausen film. Gravik seems to be losing his grip on leadership and reality, and seems to want to sacrifice his own people. Even Rhodie suspects his reasoning. Regarding Betos' revolt, did they really think they could beat Gravik to death? Did they not see what he did to Pagon? Could Fury not have killed Rhodie and Bodyguard and presented 2 Skrull bodies to the government? Sonya is quickly becoming my favourite character. She goes about her business coldly and objectively, but always with a charming smile and sassy quips. Reminds me a little of Val, except for her taste in rap. Audacity rocks. I wonder why Gaia did not use her new powers against the assassins. Still a great action scene with 2 badass females. I am sure Fury plans to hand over a fake harvest to Gravik. In the final scene, when Fury says, "It's time, let's finish this," I hope Carol Danvers finally shows up, or Doctor Strange casts a spell to make all the Skrulls think they're cows. Looking forward to TVPI podcast and Defenders feedback. Excelsior, Victor Von Doom. Good stuff, Victor. Some interesting points in there. One of the things that you mentioned there is whether Skrull Rhodie and his bodyguard could have been killed by Nick Fury. I think they've made a point, actually, that the bodyguard isn't a Skrull, because he still has the broken arm that Fury gave him back in the second episode. So I don't think his bodyguard's a Skrull. I think his bodyguard's a human, and he doesn't know that Rhodie's a Skrull, because we don't actually see Rhodie talk about his plans in front, or the Skrull plans in front of this guy, do we?
No. So, and again, if Fury shoots Rhodie, they're not even going to ask questions.
They're just going to shoot.
They're just going to shoot.
Yeah.
And there was a load of the guys there instantaneously as well.
Yeah.
So, no, definitely, it's just Rhodie or Scrody, is the Skrull. And just on the Gaia using her new powers, I don't think she knows what they are yet. I don't think she's been on the go. She hasn't really had the time to potentially Groot herself up.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Yeah, because we know that she has just the extremis power.
So far, yes. That's the only thing we're aware of.
Because I think that's what she chose from the options to give herself the extremis power, so that if she got killed, then she'd come back to life, or she'd be able to come back to life. We don't know if she has all the rest of the powers, so that's interesting. Maybe that's the mission. Maybe she's been sent to get more powers added to herself for the next episode. But I think she was able to handle herself pretty well without using any powers at all as well.
Yeah, no, it definitely. And then just on the last point about Doctor Strange cast a spell to make all the Skrulls think they're cows, that is a
classic
very
reference.
Weird comment, but for anyone else, but for any comic book fans, it makes sense, because essentially the very first Skrulls in Marvel Comics in the Fantastic Four were brainwashed into thinking at the end of it that they were cows.
That's right.
And it became a big thing for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
One of the worst things that Mr. Fantastic did.
Yes, because it led to the first Skrull invasion, right? So,
Yep.
yes, very cool. Thanks so much for that, Victor. On the revolt, did they think they could beat Gravik? I think they actually got pretty close to beating Gravik. And if you don't agree with your leader's thoughts, and he's telling you have no name and don't have any ability to question his orders, you take your shot, right? I don't think they were trying to sacrifice themselves. I think they did see what he did to Pagon and kind of went, well, we'll take an opportunity and maybe we'll catch him off guard and maybe we'll be able to take him out. But the point is, I suppose, that these lieutenants weren't willing to follow him anymore. They realized he's gone mad with power and they want to take him out. So whether they were successful or not, I feel like they failed in their attempt, but it wasn't necessarily that they didn't think they could do it. Because I think they got pretty close, especially with the bag over his head and all four of them holding him down. I think they got pretty close with taking him out.
Yeah, they don't know. They were not aware of how strong he was. If he was just a normal Skrull with extremis and a bit of Groot powers, maybe they think they could have got away with it.
Yeah.
Well, they nearly did.
They nearly did. Thanks so much, Victor.
Yes, thank you so much, Victor. We also got a message from Jeff Giles, who had this to say: Mrs. Fury's every bit of badass as she should be. Hear, hear. Hear, hear, Jeff. There can only be one badass wife for a badass Fury.
Absolutely. And she's perfect. Love her in the show. I'm looking forward to seeing some more of her in the rest of the season. Great stuff. Thanks so much to everybody for the feedback. If you want to share your feedback with us, of course, you can email us at any time to feedback at TV Podcast Industries, or pop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries. Thanks so much for joining us for the penultimate episode of the Secret Invasion podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We'll be back next week, hopefully with John as well, for our finale discussion on this season. We'll also be starting our coverage of Good Omens Season 2. That kicks off on the 28th of July, which is also next week. And we'll be continuing our coverage of The Witcher Part 2 of Season 3, which launches on the 27th of July, which is also next week. I don't know how we're going to do all of those at exactly the same time. We'll work it out, but that's what we're covering coming up on TV Podcast Industries.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week. And in the immortal words of the good old Cockney John, keep watching, keep listening, and oi, governor! Be careful who you trust.
A Cockney's a Londoner. That's the other end of the country. And highly offensive, Chris.
Mancunian? Liverpudlian?
Liverpudlian or Mancunian.
Mancunian. The Mancunian candidate.
Very different. the Mancunian candidate. The guy from Manchester who's placed in the government.
Yes.
Thanks very much, Chris. Great to see you. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Talk to you again next time. Bye.
Bye.